Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the January 14th, 2019 Board of Selectmen meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first item is approval of agenda. We do have RSU Karen 1 School Board update. Put that on the committee and board reports. Anybody got any other additions, subtractions? Okay. Looking for a motion as amended. Second. Motion by Jason, second by Phil. All those in favor? Next item on the agenda is public forum. This is for comments from the public on any non-agenda items. There anybody from the public that would like to speak on non-agenda items?
Well, it's not necessarily non-agenda items. It's about the transfer station changes.
We'll get to that.
But I didn't know how long the committee and board reports were gonna be.
One report,
Okay, thank you.
but it might be lengthy. No.
No, I have a 7:30 insulin shot in here.
Okay, good. So, approval of minutes from December 21st.
That's a long meeting, yeah.
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Phil, seconded by Tom. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Alright. Committee and board reports. Give an update on the December 17th, 2018 school board meeting. This was a lengthy meeting. Start off with public input. There was only one individual that stood up and talked about, you may have heard some of this on the news, talked about Principal Cressy leaving from the high school. He had made a comment about the superintendent, possibly making decisions without school board input. Kind of went on with that, was very upset about that happening. Obviously, the board didn't make any further discussions on that at that point, but they reopened that issue back up. Presentations, Kyle Keenan gave a presentation on fostering growth mindsets. He had 5 students from the 4th and 5th grade kind of stand up and talk a little bit. Pretty nice little presentation, and they shared a video that was put together by the kindergarten, and it was called The Bubblegum Brain. Pretty cute little video. Building project update. This was the largest locally funded project in the state of Maine, and it came in under budget and ahead of time. They expected everything to be completed by February 1st, so that was pretty good. New business, there's a big discussion on the MEA scores, test scores. So they went through and talked a lot about all of the different scores from the different disciplines, and math was one of them that was one of the lowest scores, and there was a lot of concern from the board members, but the gist of it is really that there was only one school in York County with a higher score. So it's just the way that the testing was going, and they talked about a lot of the other tools that the district uses to help the students get better. The issue was a lot of folks in the public and even the board members kind of felt that we weren't doing the right things for math, but I think it was just, it's just the way that those MEA test scores came out, so that worked out okay. They had a discussion on blizzard bags. Blizzard bags is a way to, if they know that there's a storm is coming, they kind of hand out to the students the night before, so that the students can maybe, if they know that there's not gonna be any school, can kind of do some work. They weren't too pleased with that, the board wasn't very receptive to that. They're looking at some more information, try to kind of gather that and see if that's even worth it. Couldn't do it this year, but if they were gonna do it, maybe they'll look into it for next year. There was a discussion on school start time. They're looking at two different times now, 8:05 and 8:55. And apparently one of those times is a time that the committee kind of decided on without public input. So they went out, they asked for public input, they got all kinds of information for public input, and then the school board went out and decided, or the committee decided to pick another time. There was a board member too that wasn't happy about that, kind of voiced their opinion on that. Let's see, update from the school board chair, second and third, they came in second and third in the robotics. The superintendent is working on a teacher evaluation systems. She's looking at student and staff attendance and the rates. And they're working to get the final numbers from the construction. There'll be an audit coming up pretty soon here. High school ribbon cutting went very well. And let's see, the Mildred Day Movie Night went very well. And we adjourned at 9:30. That's it in a nutshell.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, manager's report. First on the item is the transfer station changes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we've been now 2 weeks after the first of the year with the changes that have occurred at the transfer station, which include, after 11 years, an increase in our municipal solid waste cost from 7 cents to 12 cents, and then our recycling costs that have gone from 0 to 7 cents. In addition to those changes that were implemented, we also did a single lane travel to the station in order to try to put people in, to make sure that we were identifying the trash and recyclables that were coming, making sure they got weighed properly, and that there was a fee that was imposed on all of that prior to moving on. What we've discovered from this is that I've had I'd say a plethora of complaints that have come either to me in my office, by email, or by phone, that have come to me to talk about the changes. And what I'm hearing, the biggest complaints are how we have slowed things down tremendously as a result of what we're doing now. Anywhere between 15 and 20-minute delay to get up there. It seems like folks are waiting, and there just doesn't seem to be enough flow on it. Having said that, I was talking to Roger this morning, and over this past Saturday, the staff from Casella did not put out the cones, did not put in a single lane traffic. And as a result of that, we went back to that hodgepodge of traffic, either folks backing in, folks pulling in, and I'm not quite sure how that went. I know some of you go up there, and I'm sure some that are perhaps in the audience tonight can comment on both aspects. I think what we're trying to do now is to fine tune what we have, what isn't working, what's working, how we can modify it to make it more user-friendly. So I guess that's where we are at this point.
So the key really is, the intent of some of this was really to make sure that we capture the folks for the recyclables, right? To make sure that we capture the
Not only that, but I think the municipal solid waste, I think folks have had a habit of going up, whether it's being weighed or not, I'm not quite sure. I think some have been very diligent about weighing, but with folks coming and going, I think there's a tendency that folks may not wait. You know, I weighed it, I've tossed it, I'm waiting to pay, you're not coming to get my money, I'm gonna leave. So I think we weren't capturing the funding as well, so that may be part of it. Maybe I'm wrong. But I'd love to hear comments, whether or not you observed folks that were leaving, that weren't paying, those types of things as
you know,
well.
I didn't make it there this week and I was gone, but Tom.
Tom probably made it.
Yeah, I was there. I was there later in the afternoon, and they weren't using the single lane
Yeah.
procedure anymore, and I was in and out in about 3 seconds.
Okay.
But the gentleman who was there, I think there's only one guy working. I'm not sure.
Sorry?
You guys
One
have
or
worked-
two there, Gino.
It took me two
Two,
guys.
I got him, but he was there, he was weighing, he had two scales, and he was weighing trash on one and recyclables on the other. I didn't see any problem the way it was working.
Okay. But you were there the week before we had the single lane,
I was.
okay.
Mm.
And you've already weighed in with me on,
Yes.
on what you saw, so, in Tom's experience, he was sort of boxed in, you couldn't get out.
Right, and
And,
the gentleman in front of me had some, construction stuff to get rid of, and so, while they dealt with that, you had to sit there and wait, and I was done. You know, they'd already weighed me out, so, that didn't work, I didn't think it worked very well. But, I mean, I said wasn't a busy time when I got there this Saturday, so I didn't get in and out pretty
okay.
quickly.
What are the plans going forward? What are we gonna do there?
Well, great question, I think that's why we're here tonight, and that's why I put it on here, you know, we need to, I received those complaints, I really want this to work. If the single lane isn't working right now, Roger and I talked today, you know, and I think we had spoken about maybe if we had two lanes, one for demo, one for solid waste, that may work, not sure. It seems to be jamming folks up. The reason that I proposed the single lane, and I have to admit that I'm the one that proposed it, was the fact that when I've been up there and reserving, I'm afraid that somebody's gonna get hit based on the jockeying of cars, pulling out, that kind of thing. That was my concern. We again spoke today, we may try to reach out to Casella's safety officer to have them come up and give us a look-see as to what they think, based on the you know, the cars coming and going. That was my big concern, and that's why I proposed when we made the rate changes to go to the single lane. But that single lane seems to be really causing more problems than what I hoped they were gonna resolve.
So I guess I would look to Gino and Roger, and if you speak, please state your name so that the folks that are listening in.
Yeah,
know
absolutely.
That will listen in.
My name's
but-
Gino, Chair of the Operation Manager with Pine Tree Waste. So there's a few things that I've heard so far. And as far as the cones not being there, I have to say, unfortunately, that was the doing of one of my employees that manned the transfer station. He happened to be one of the employees that was there the previous Saturday when this went into effect, and one of the gentlemen that was taking the brunt, I guess, if you will, of some unhappy residents having to wait in line and having money thrown at them and being sworn at and so forth. So I apologize. The standing regiment, until we're told differently, is the single lane. Again, the employee took it upon himself to not put the cones out and just to handle the influx of traffic the way he had been prior to that. So my apologies on that. That's not what should have happened. So what I see on this with the implementation of new charging for recycle and so forth, of course, it's another charge, and nobody USA is going to be happy about that, right? That in and of itself is going to slow the flow of traffic down. It's something else that has to be weighed. When in the past, people are seemingly in the habit of coming out, they weigh their trash, and the recycle goes simultaneously, maybe as my employees weighing that waste, okay? I think the town manager makes a good point, and I think it's valid, that there's, through some of these changes, we are actually capturing more of the funding. When you slow the process down, any process, you can take a better look at it and decipher it. And I think some of the material that was going into the reuse room was actually, should have been caught and charged for, but people just, because of what was happening with the sort of chaotic, multi-car, multi-drop system that was happening before, there's a lot of moving pieces there, and in some cases, dangerously so. So I think by slowing this down, I'm not sure if the single lane is the answer, but it's just the nature of the way the containers are set there. It kind of prevents kind of a multi-lane use, and at the same time making things as safe as possible for the residents while they're up there. Like anything else, we've implemented these changes, try to work through something that's gonna work for everybody. But unfortunately, you know, as Americans, the last thing we wanna do is slow down. Nobody wants to spend a half hour at the dump on Saturday. I totally get that. But at the same time, you know, to put a program into effect where people can safely, enter and exit the transfer station, they can get rid of their materials, and the town can receive that funding that's due. I think just having more orderly a process, is gonna slow it down. And I'm sure, our safety department will be willingly, to come up, and they've been there before. In fact, we do an annual inspection, where we operate that facility. We wanna make sure our employees are safe as well as the townspeople are coming to the transfer station. So they do an annual inspection. Roger's been awesome in working with our safety department. We have to get recommended. He's implemented those changes promptly. But I'm sure they would, and I'd be happy to invite them.
And Roger?
The old system might have worked when it's not real busy, but it's a free-for-all.
Yeah.
And unsafe, I agree with Keith and his idea about the single lane, yeah, it's slowing it down, you're weighing twice as much stuff now. But some people are driving up to the wall because they can't back up, but then they have to back out, which is bad. I spent quite a bit of time when we first started doing the dump sticker deal again, just to make sure that all the people going there were people from Arundel. They weren't. So that's helped some. We were being inundated with cardboard that was coming from out of town.
Yeah, cause they increased rates over there, right?
So, yeah, it's $55 for a yard of cardboard. It was free in Arundel. Guess where it went? So, yeah, it needs some tweaking.
So,
In the spring, we're looking at adding some additional parking area out front, possibly moving the other cans out front that take tires and large items like couches, chairs, stuff like that. So that it's in the front of the building, but off to the side, so people can see what's going on rather than up out of the way. A lot of stuff gets thrown that the attendant never gets a chance to look at. So that
that's
would
kind of
help
my
too.
thought, yeah, wait, that we could arrange the dumpsters so that maybe you have that one lane for the, you know, that you gotta pay, and then the other ones for something that, you know, for everything else, but I don't know if we can do that or not, but.
So looking at it putting it up in the front as far as more parking area, parking lot per se, to move those other cans around. You're kinda limited what you've got right now as far as where the waste demo and stuff goes. Paying to recycle is one of the biggest gripes I heard, obviously the weight's an issue. But if we can tweak it somehow to come up with a compromise in between what we've got and where we were, we'd better do that, because it wasn't safe.
Well, I mean, you know, I think it's a work in progress, right? We gotta try some different things and see what works, listen for the residents, I know you've got your hand up, and I'll get you in a second here. But we need to,
Yeah, I had probably 18 to 20 people that reached out to me, and out of polling those, out of those 20, I would say 18 were really concerned about traffic. And some, you know, maybe half of them were concerned about the changes in the rates. But I saw that primarily we were dealing with traffic and the weight,
time,
and that was the thing that was really upsetting people more than anything else.
that's very good. Go ahead, Diane.
The first week, but even before the first week, I'm gonna go back to what we complain about in this town all the time, and that is lack of communication. Because you could send this nice, pretty arrow out with all this information about all the new town hall and the committee members and all of that, right? To be quite honest, right now, most people are not looking at this, but everybody goes to the dump, probably every week. Nothing in here about the changes. And even the changes that were written on the website, cause I went and looked at it, only describes mostly the changes in the cost and why. Now, number one, I have no issue with what you're charging, okay? If you read anything, listen to anything on the news, it says, No one's getting anything for recyclables right now, or if they are, it's nothing like what it used to be. I'm okay with that. I'm even okay with the single line, because I do feel that it's safer. I don't have to worry about somebody backing into me or what's gonna happen to me while I'm doing my dump. But the first week, the wait was over 20 minutes. People were getting pissed. They were driving off. They had 5 people there, and they couldn't keep the line going. Okay, it's the first week. I go back the second week. It was only 10 minutes this time. I must have hit it at a good time. But I brought my recycling this time. Well, I wanted my bags back because I recycle everything, including my trash bags. Only for my recycling, not for my garbage. And I wanted them back. Well, they stopped putting it in a trash can, and I didn't know what they were doing. They didn't explain it to me. And I'm like, well, no, that trash can doesn't belong to me. Because usually they weigh your trash can because they charge you for the trash can, right? So I said, no, the trash can's not mine. And he goes, no, wait a minute, and I'll show you. And the 2 guys, at that point, there were 4 people there. There was one on the line, and there are still people coming in without their stickers. To be quite honest, if they don't have, you sent out the thing about the stickers a long time ago. If they don't have their sticker, then tell them to go get one before they return their trash. That would save time. We have one sticker from the Hemi because it's dead right now. So we're using it in the umbrella. But they have to have their stickers. It has to start with the stickers, and then you have to tell people what the rules are when they get there. Because people don't know. They get there and they don't know what's going on anymore. It's a single line. They don't know what they're supposed to do. They don't know if they're supposed to get out of their car, stay in their car. Me, I'm like, that's it, grabbing my stuff, bringing it, getting it weighed. As far as I'm concerned, single line, it's not any change. That part was okay. But when I asked about the trash can, the girl that was working that day started rolling her eyes at me and giving me a dirty look, and that was it. I was done. Okay? I don't mind the change, but don't disrespect me when I'm there. If I'm asking you why you're putting my stuff in a trash can to weigh it, then take 2 seconds to explain it to me. The other 2 guys were pretty good about it. They said, well, we've been taking a lot of grief. And I said, I can understand that, but I don't need to have her eyes rolled at me and get a dirty look because I'm asking what you're doing. You're charging me for this. And then they don't even tell me how much it is. They just take my thing and stamp it. So I don't even know how much it cost me that day because I didn't look at my card to see how many I had on it and how many I had after. So it's a combination. We have to educate people on how it works. I personally, despite the time, like the single in. But you do have to do something about what you do about these people that come in with big, massive trucks. I don't know if you space people out. I don't know if you put a marker and say, put a 1, a 2, and a 3. So cars have to stay within those spaces so they can pull out this way to get out. Do you know what I'm saying, Roger? So in front of where you stop, you have a 1, a 2, and a 3. 1 would be your demo. 2 and 3 would be household and garbage. Then you leave enough room so that when you're done, you can pull out between the cones and go out if the first person isn't gone. So if demo is still dumping in front of you, I don't want to wait 20 minutes while somebody empties out a whole truck of demo. But I don't like the 2 lanes because if you get somebody in that other lane start whizzing by you while you're going, you might not see them, or if somebody's getting out of the car, or if you've got your kid with you. I don't like 2 lanes. I do like 1 lane, but I don't like the time. I'm willing to work on the process, but I'll tell you, I go back and have them be nasty, and it wasn't everybody. There was 1 person out of 4, it was the girl. And she rolled her eyes, and when I made a comment about it, she started in and she ended up going into the building. The regular guy that waits on me all the time, he's like, we've had a lot of heat. I said, I understand that, but don't take it out on me. I'm just trying to figure out what you're doing with my trash. It has to make sense. So, the first thing you should do is put something on the, if you don't wanna mail it out, cause I know that costs, put something on the website that explains what the process needs to be. So people at least go there and understand. And then, I saw the list of stuff, but there really wasn't that big of an explanation of why we had to pay for our recyclables. Now, some people are like, I'm just gonna put it in the trash, and I'm like, if you're that foolish to pay 5 cents more a pound, be my guest, I'm still gonna separate them. I'm not unreasonable, and I think most of the people in this town aren't unreasonable. But when you show up to the dump, or the transfer station, or whatever you wanna call it, and you don't know it's gonna change until you get there and you're waiting in line forever, you already start behind the 8 ball. Now, I kinda knew things were changing because when I came to get my sticker, one of the girls had said something about the fact that, you know, you'd had people coming in, so I knew people were checking cars. And you know something, I applaud you for doing that. If people are coming in and using our tax dollars to bring dump from places they shouldn't be bringing it from, or recyclables, whatever it is, or even demo debris, then I want that stopped like anybody else in this town. If they don't live here, they don't pay taxes here, it's not their transfer station, then they shouldn't be coming here. And stop them, and I have no offense with that. If that means I have to wait in line for 5 minutes while you check cars, I'm fine with that. It was once you got there and the attitude and things aren't marked, so you don't know, there's 2 scales, but you don't know if one's for trash and one's for recycling. Nothing's labeled, so you don't know what to do. But first time there were 5 people there. When I went the second time, there were still 4 people there. I don't know if they're all Casellas or if some of them are from town, but there were 4 people working there. And I'm sorry, and I'm trying not to be offensive, but 4 people working is using the word loosely. 1 was checking the cars, the other 3 were all standing by the weighing things. No one was really explaining to anybody what to do. So there was no hurry up and get the stuff done and get out, because they were like, here, just waiting for you to figure out what they were doing. So from somebody who goes and somebody who respects the process and has seen it been going on forever, you know, I think it needs to be tweaked. I think you can make it work. If we got people dumping that shouldn't, stop it. I don't mind paying for my trash, but there has to be a process. Some people need to change their attitude.
I will say that, I kind of agree with you 100% on the communication piece of it. We kind of rushed this out there, and I know that we had a little bit of a discussion about getting people to know, and that's on us, and I apologize for that. I think we should have taken a little bit more time to get the word out to folks. We didn't. We tried to get that going, and, you know, hopefully we'll learn from this in the future and make sure that we give people plenty of notice, plenty of time, so that, you know, that's on us, and I'll take responsibility for that. But, you know, I appreciate your comments, and it's a work in progress. I mean, we gotta make this, we gotta try to do what we can to make it work. As Roger said, it's a very limited space there, so you just can't say, hey, let's try this and go. So, you know, I say we continue to try to work those out, we work with Roger and work with everybody else, try to figure out a way to do this.
No, and the second week I went, there was one guy with a pickup truck that was so pissed that he was like, he was going down that dump road, he must have been doing 35, 40 miles an hour with one of the cones stuck under his truck. And I tried to tell him that he had a cone, and just as I was going by him, the freaking cone came flying out, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get whacked with a cone. Fortunately not, but, you know, those are the kinds of things you just have to try to, and people have to understand, things are gonna change. And, you know, I think even if you put on the website that people have been caught bringing stuff that don't live in town, it costs us money, and what happened with the cost of recycling, I think even those things will help people understand more why you're checking their cars, why you check to make sure they live in town, and why they have to pay more.
Roger, you have a?
Again, a work in progress, but you've still got people showing up. Terry and I waited on one guy that had some kind of SUV, which seems to be the only thing on the road these days. And he had loose recyclables, cardboard, throughout the vehicle. I mean, when people show up like that, and he's used to probably parking up by the wall and taking his time cleaning it out, whether he goes once a month or however. But this is the thing that you gotta try to change and educate people about. In the future, all your cardboard's gotta be broken down, but put it in a box or something. The whole deal she's talking about with a trash barrel, they had pre-programmed the weight of a barrel onto one of the scales. We put a brand new scale up there and then had the other one redone, rebuilt, and then recalibrated, put up there so that we knew we were gonna be weighing two different materials, trash and then. So they had pre-programmed the weight of a barrel on one, and that's what that was all about. They were dumping small recyclables into that, weighing it, they knew exactly what it was on the scale, okay? Rather than weighing their stuff separate, then putting the can, if they brought one back on, so that was trying to just speed up the process. There's a bunch of things that still need to be done, but that was the deal with that trash barrel. And that first Saturday was quite a show. Nobody likes change.
Any other comments from the board?
Just a comment on local, it seems like every other transfer station has a distinct difference between metal and demo. Is like a totally separate area from trash and recycling. Is that even an option for, I mean, could we put metal and demo down by like the, where your mulch pile is, the Christmas trees? And designate someone that just deals with metal and demo?
You'd have to have somebody right there all the time with it, that's all, but my only worry about that is, I would think you'd be better off if we had something out front, they could still see it.
Maybe
Somebody's gonna
across,
stop down by the
yeah, what about,
chip pile and,
what
Start
about across from where the
unloading
dumpsters are now,
We-
over on there towards,
the
Dump.
demo and the metal are on the very end of the line. So you've got, the first compactor has got recyclables in it, small recyclables. Second one is household trash. Third one was large item cardboard stuff, which people were throwing boxes in there, the size of these desks and tables, not compacted. So trying to get them to do that. And then you've got 2 demo cans and a metal can.
And part of the reason people don't break down their cardboard is because for the longest time, I was breaking mine down, and one day I was breaking it down at the dump before I put it in. Guy goes, oh no, you don't need to break that down, just throw it in.
yeah, I mean, it's an education
So when you get
piece.
used to it, and people are told you don't have to break it down, and then now you have to break it down, it's like,
We need
okay.
to, we need to educate the folks that, you know,
Yeah.
that's what they need to do, and till we try to figure out this lane thing.
We had these notices posted on the post in the front of the building up there, probably at least 2 weeks in advance of this. In hindsight, they should have been 4x8 sheets probably, just to get their attention. I believe the town hall has some of these as well.
I only go
There was
like
3 or 4 of
once
those up
every
there.
3 weeks.
Yeah, I'm the same way, I don't go every week,
No.
you know. I compact all mine, and then when my 2 cans are full, I go, so it takes a while.
They laugh at me, cause I only have one bag every
Work
3
in
weeks.
progress.
Okay, yeah, anything else,
working on it.
anything else from the board? Okay. Okay, municipal building committee update.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if we wanna take the Stonebridge Farm matter out of order, just because I don't, there's folks here that maybe don't wanna sit through conversations about sewer districts.
Yeah, we can do that.
Well, let me just, I'm here with Fred, John Lambert. I'm happy to wait, I don't wanna pull rank or anything.
No,
Although,
but,
I'm a former town councilor, and this is giving me PTSD.
you folks
We're here to listen.
for that, so let's go ahead, let's take that up, and then we can get back to the manager's report.
Biggest.
Yeah, we'll go from there. All right, so we're gonna jump to Stone Ridge Farm setback matter.
And for the record, given my previous involvement with this matter, I'm gonna recuse myself from any decisions on this matter.
but we won't be making any decisions tonight. Okay, what do you got for us on that, Keith? I don't have anything here.
Well, I gave you, I reported out in my executive notes to you that, what we have is, we've had a long-standing, debate and issue related to, the farm, and particularly when I got here, my tenure here, has been the barn.
Mhm.
Unfortunately for Mr. Stone, I think it's 2 years now, his barn collapsed. And as a result of that, I think he's before us here now to try to resurrect his barn. And I think there are a bunch of issues that you're gonna have to deal with. Number one, the location of the barn, whether it meets the setbacks, or whether or not you're going to weigh into some sort of agreement to allow the barn to stay. And the other piece is the barn itself, what parts of the barn are gonna be able to be reused, and what if any, we're gonna require engineering, if parts of the barn are going to be used again. I'm sure that they have some comments and suggestions on that, and, but I think that's the crux of what we're dealing with at this particular point. And just try to assist Mr. Stone to get his barn back up, but also to ensure that whatever, compliance issues that need to be addressed are addressed as well.
Okay. You guys, sure, please present your name.
Um,
Name, I should say.
My name is John Lambert. I'm one of 6 million lawyers from Portland, and with the firm of Lambert Coffin. And it was a fateful day when Fred Stone walked through my door 3 years ago. It's sort of in the book of Job. I'm going to touch on a couple of things other than the farm, but basically, it started with a new street management plan. We got it squared away, and it's been sort of a volunteer project on my part. And we were moving forward. We got new street management plan. We were going to get back up on all cylinders, and then the contamination issue arose, which I'm sure most of you have heard about. And I'm going to come back to that because that's probably a larger issue for you than the setback thing. But anyway, that was in November of 2016, and then in February of 17, the barn collapsed. It was a snowstorm, killed a cow. Got the insurance squared away, and the delay in terms of getting the barn back up was solving the contamination issue to the point where the state and the Oakhurst would agree that the milk could be available for public consumption, but that took forever because of the learning curve of what happens with cows who've been contaminated. Anyway, in September, I thought we were close to getting it with the state, so I came in with a building permit with the town, and I think in April-ish of 18. And met with the CEO, and he basically identified 2 issues. There was the setback issue, and then the plan is the exact same structure, which is the hoops barn, was gonna go, it was literally the exact same structure that has been there since it was put in back in 2000. It's gonna go back on the exact same pilings. And the CEO said, well, I need an engineer to sort of confirm that the pilings will hold it. I said, no problem. And there's always been this setback issue, and I said, all right, give me a look at that. And then state found additional reasons to sort of, couldn't go anywhere, so it sort of fell by the wayside. Finally, the state said Oakhurst can buy milk in late September, at which point the barn became relevant again. You know, the farm's gonna operate. So, in the meantime, I'm looking at the setback issue, and I'm new to the game, and I found Dick Romeo's old file, which is remarkably thin. And, there appeared to be some sort of agreement. There were letters back and forth, and a small fine was paid, like $50, I don't know that, but a small fine. And then the barn went up. And I've been trying to, I'm sending out emails to Milda Kastner, and finally I dragged Tom back into it. I'm like, what happened in 2000 where the barn went up, nobody said boo until the snow collapsed in February 17. And so all we're hoping to do is put up, you know, we get that, we've got an engineer who's sort of gone out and checked the pilings and said like 98% of them are good, we might sister one or two. But it's really the setback, and all we're looking to do is to go back to what was there in January of 17. And I don't have the history as to, something happened back in 2000, because there were a lot of letters back and forth. Small check was written and the barn went up, and nothing happened for the next 18 years. And I was talking to Tom, and, you know, we're not looking to expand or change anything, but just come to an agreement that we can do whatever we were doing for 18 years. I mean, that's in a nutshell.
Comments from the board?
This is pre-me, so I'm not familiar with the entire package of this. Like the reference of, what was it, Durbin? What was the gentleman's name of,
Romeo.
Dick Romeo,
who was that?
he was Fred's lawyer, and I think Milda Kastner was representing the town back then. And there's letters back and forth. I sent everything I had to
So there was
Tom and Keith.
There was a building permit issued in 2000 for the erection of this barn?
No.
Don't know.
Yes, there is, I have signed it.
I
I haven't heard it.
Not that I know of.
do you have
Mr. Stone has.
I don't
it.
have the one that
That
I
was
have.
my question, is, was this barn put up, originally put up legally or illegally, was it? And
I have,
don't know.
I have, according to my records, that back in either 2006, 2007, there was an effort to try to adhere or take care of a manure pile issue through a consent agreement, which never got signed. And then, for whatever reason, that sort of just stayed where it was at that particular point. And then in 2010, the building, the barn was erected, as far as I know. It was
No,
erected in the location. Was it
barn
before
was
that?
put up in barn was put up in like 2000.
Okay, well,
And I do have the building permit that was issued.
okay. I think in all of this, we also had, we had an issue with, with Curtis Road, and where it actually was. And then there was a judgment that was made by a court that Curtis Road was in a certain location. And if you look at the map that was approved, the survey that was approved by the court, it certainly puts the barn in violation of a setback to the road now. Because it has to be 50 feet from the road. So I think that's part of this whole mix that we're chatting about as well.
And when was the judgment from the court, before or after the barn was erected?
Oh, way after, like 10 or 12 years, and frankly, the town wasn't a party to the suit. So I don't think it applies to the town, frankly.
Is the current road where it was judged to be, supposed to be?
I believe it is.
Where the road is, I think varies each month by 5 feet or so, you know. Depending on how the grass is cut, you know, it's a dirt road, you know.
Yeah, I know the road.
So I think here, what they're looking for is some relief to put the barn up.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
In exactly the same place, I mean, just to be clear, it's the same hoop barn and, you know, basically going on the same pilings. Subject to getting it, the CEO of the engineering sign off that says the pilings are good to go.
And I guess the key to me is if they got, if that barn was put in legally, then, my feeling is that they should be allowed to put it back up,
So there may be,
as long as it doesn't
Yeah,
change, if they're putting it back up, if it was put in legally. I mean, you got whether, if he's got a building permit and we screwed up, we can't, tell him, sorry, move the barn, in my eyes, but we need to find out, to make sure that that was put in, to me, it was put in legally to begin with.
can't answer that, Si.
I can't either. All I can say is, after 17, 18 years, that's kind of a long time to sit on an illegality, if there is one.
Well, I don't know all the history, I know that there's been some, consent agreements, worked with Mr. Stone on a bunch of different things, but I just, whether it sat for a while, to me, is irrelevant. I mean, if it was legal when he put in, then we should allow him. If it was illegal, if it was not legal, then we have another issue. Then we have to try to figure something else out, and work some agreement or what have you, but.
You have the building permit with you?
No, I don't have it, I brought my contract, I brought my new management plan because I thought that's what we're gonna be talking about. I do have it, I've given the copy to Mr. Lambert, and I do have the building permit. I also have a canceled check for the fine that was paid, it was $300 to build a castle.
The building permit you have was issued in 2000 when the barn was erected?
Yep.
That was probably by Bud?
Yep. May he rest in peace.
I
And the
think,
reason the
I
barn-
think one of the issues we have is whether or not if he has it, I'm more than happy, I think I would tend to agree with Dan at this point, if he has a legal permit that was issued, then I don't think we have any choice than to try to work with him to make sure the engineering's done and the permit, but I need to see the permit, I guess.
I can
I'll
go-
check with the
I can
CEO.
also go one step further and tell you that I have the permit from the Army Corps of Engineers citing that barn where it is. And also the no storage is supposed to go along with it. Because of the wetland issue that's behind
Does
it.
the Army Corps of Engineers come in and dictate to the town
That's got nothing really, to me, that's got nothing to do with us.
what we can and can't do?
Right.
So what we need to see is that valid permit for 2000, then we got something to work with.
We'll get to,
Okay. And that may, other than that, I think the issue is with the code enforcement officer
Absolutely.
to ensure that the engineering is solid and that things that need to be done are done.
I wanted to get this T crossed before we went to that I.
Yeah, I know, Tom, you've got a conflict, but, there anything that you can add, that you can, any information that we're missing that wouldn't affect any of this at all, or?
I think it's okay, John, if I.
I'm not holding you to
Okay.
the conflict, so you know. I didn't
But
invoke.
we wanna be clear, we don't wanna.
Fair enough.
Some of what happens when we tried the case over where the Curtis Road was and the surveyor laid it out, that's what generated the setback issue. Before then, nobody exactly knew where the Curtis Road was and what its condition was and whether it was, there were other issues in the case, but
Right.
the survey laid it out, and once Jim got a hold of it, I think Jim Nagel, the CEO, got a hold of it, that's when the issue of the setback reared its head.
Oh, so maybe it arose after the fact, I don't know. But that would suggest to me that it's another
Right.
challenge.
Yeah.
But look, if there's a permit, we'll go get it and get it to you.
So, yeah, I guess obviously you folks are here.
Yes.
Anything that you wanna add, anything that,
Yeah, actually, I do wanna add something. I'm not sure if the barn was put up with a permit or not, but the reason why it's not conforming now is because through our court proceedings, the road was moved by the road was, the court ordered now to where it is now. And the barn's too close to the road. I've been living out there for almost 20 years now. I've been dealing with driving through less than desirable stuff in the road. I mean, it just drops everything in the road. There's a reason why the setbacks are there, is to prevent that from happening. And I guess if this does pass, or which way it goes, I wanna make sure that that road is defined, where, you know, it's a road, here's the road, where the road is, and you just stay out of it.
It's fair enough.
I'll get the permit.
The permits, and then we can look at it. And at that point, you know, we can still, I mean, we may still have to do some sort of consent agreement to
I think.
cover some issues, some of those issues that were brought up here and what have you, but.
I think we're still a few weeks away before we can wrap this all up.
Fair enough. Appreciate your time. Just, I alluded to the contamination issue, and I just, to hear it straight from you. It's very clear that as a result of the sludge spreading program, the water, the soil, and the forage is ruined. And the stuff does not deteriorate, the chemical PFOA and PFOS. And it was until August of 15, maybe, you know, that the EPA said this is something that needs to be started to watch. It's a byproduct of Teflon and Scotchgard. And it appears to collect in the sludge of municipal waste treatment plants. And then the sludge programs, it was, rather than pay the tipping fees, with the sponsorship of the state DEP, a number of districts started spreading the sludge on farms and other applications. And it may be that there were manufacturing interests in the two sewage districts, Dunkirk and Kennebunk, that were spread on this particular farm, that had higher dosages than just sort of household, you know, runoff of the two chemicals. But it strikes me that I would be concerned as a municipality of any farms that went into this treatment program, or sludge spreading program, and it went on from about 86 to 2004, for Fred. That's from memory, just less reliable each year. But basically, a while, and any farms you got in this town, I can't imagine why that would be a problem. With your water source, your forage, your soil. And we don't have a clue how to remediate it.
I might add that all the sludge spreading that was done through Kennebunk, there was, I know of 3 other places in Arundel that were done with Kennebunk Sewer District sludge. And I might add that everybody had their permits, and the permits are signed by the town of Arundel, along with the DEP.
So,
It was permitted use. In fact, on our situation, DEP spent 2 weeks and did a whole grid through the fields. And their conclusion was that we followed our permits to the letter, including the gravel pit. And that they could follow the setbacks by the levels of contamination that were in the soil. And since those are scannic soils, they're heavy soils, they don't, the material doesn't leach out. But if the material was spread on the sandy soils, Buxton's or Adams, then they would leach out, and they would leach directly into the water, any water source, that anybody had a shallow well or what have you, that their levels of PFOS or PFOA contamination would be extremely high. We have a pretty good idea where the Kennebunk's source of contamination comes from, but that's another story for another day. Algonquin was another one that was spreading in the area, Kennebunk especially, in Arundel some. They also spread in Berwick. I did a lot of and the reason I know that is I did a lot of the custom work. I did custom seedings, I did custom spreading for Algonquin and for Kennebunk. So I have a pretty good idea where all the material went from. Dayton's ground zero because of the material that was dumped up to Dayton. But it's a big, as John alluded, it's a big mess. And that's why we have a $21,000 filtration system in our house, or to filter the water going to the barns and stuff. And that's also why Kenny Bonk in their infinite wisdom put one in across the river, because they're pumping out of that aquifer. But until they did that, the water that they were pumping into 2 schools, and I have the reports I can show you, and I know I'm going too far and I will shut up now.
Anyway, just a heads up. Thank you for your time and
Okay.
ending my PTSD session.
All right. Thank you. All right, so let's go back to manager's report and an update on the building committee update, municipal building committee.
Yeah, I know that most of you know what's going on, but I just wanted to make sure that the folks who are in attendance tonight know that we're diligently working with our committee, as well as the board of selectmen. We'll be meeting again on the 22nd to try to, as I understand now, look at 2 plans. We initially saw a plan that we provided, that the architect provided to us. There was some discussion on it, and she's made some modifications to that plan and presented that to us. And I think now we're having a discussion as to how far do we actually need to go with reconfiguring the design, and how we're gonna link that all together so it makes sense for us moving forward. So, my expressions to her will be that, bring both plans, and then the committee can look at it. And again, the public's invited to attend those. We publicize those, we post the agendas for folks to come, and they can hear what goes on if they so desire.
It's 7, Keith, right here.
Yes, 7 o'clock here.
And again, I may not be able to make that, but I'll get with you before that with my thoughts if I can't make that meeting.
Still on for a second.
Yes, sir.
So,
The next thing I have is just a report out to the workshop that I attended with the sewer district trustees. Jason was with me. Dan was supposed to come, but something came up at work and he couldn't get away. So it was Mike Stein from Wright Pierce, who was our engineer on it, as well as the folks from 2 trustees from the board of trustees down in Kennebunk, and then their staff, engineers, as well as the Mike Boulder, the district manager. And I think what we did is we all provided some information. They provided to us information related to their system, the potential upgrades that would have to be done to their infrastructure in order to accommodate flows from Arundel. We provided to them projections of what our flows would be from day 1 to 20 years out. We gave them a quick synopsis of what the system would look like coming from Arundel down the Route 1 corridor, from the Arundel cottages down to the river, and what that would entail. And then we talked a little bit about their upcoming, they have a new DEP permit regulations that they have to meet in 2021. And so now they're sort of gearing up as to what their new treatment plant will have to adhere to when it comes to the permitting for 2021. So we were flowing a lot of information between us. What they decided to do, the trustees, is in the next couple of weeks, they're going to meet as a board and decide whether or not they want to move forward any further with Arundel and its efforts to tie in regionally with their system. Once they make that decision, I think then we can go ahead and there'll be an assessment that'll be done on their infrastructure. We'll nail down exactly the cost for our buy-in, as well as what cost there may be associated with their upgrades to their new treatment plant, and then whatever cost we have for our infrastructure that'll be going into the ground hearing. So, once they make a decision whether that, then I think the rubber is going to hit the road for us, so we can at least start putting together some honest, concrete numbers. And then based on, what we have for funding, how those numbers are gonna stack up to the funding that we have. It could be a daunting task. You know, some of the numbers that they were throwing around were, you know, anywhere between about $8 to $10 million,
Yeah.
for infrastructure upgrades, plus.
And they don't even really wanna
What's that?
they don't even really wanna talk about like systematic upgrades until after they receive that DEP report in 2021, you know, which was nitrogen based. It
Yeah.
was something to do with the water, the river water having a certain nitrogen level.
Yeah. And they have to meet some sort of standard that, of their, discharge into the, Mousam River as a result of that, so. And we, you know, we had done, I think for us, it's just gonna be a matter of whether trustees are gonna move forward. If they do, then I think this is a very viable option for us to consider moving forward with them. Because the other two options that we looked at, according to Wright Pierce, are far more expensive than what we'd be doing going to Kennybunk. As you know, the study, the preliminary study they did for us, one of them was to do our own standalone, system. There is no way that the DEP or the federal government are gonna give us a discharge permit to go into the Kennybunk River. As you know, I'll be talking about the Kennybunk River watershed coming up. That's not it's not an option. So our only option would be the purchasing vast amounts of land north of Arundel Cottages in order to do retainment ponds and do our system there. So we're talking a lot of money to do that. And then the other option would be to go to Biddeford, but Biddeford has a stormwater issue where they have a lot of infiltration into their sewer system as a result of their stormwater, system. And we would have to end up putting up, some sort of retainment, discharge ponds at the north end of town prior to pumping it into, Biddeford. It's not insurmountable, but from what Wright Pierce tells us, it's a little more costly to go that way. So those are what we have for options based on the study we did. I think we just wait to see if the trustees are willing. If they're not, then I think we have another conversation altogether as to what we're really going to do.
When are they expecting to start their upgrades? I know they gotta wait for the DEP and stuff, but when was they must have a timeline of when they plan on starting.
Right, they've already done their headwater upgrades, it's not part of the, system itself. I think they're gonna start, I think they're gonna do the planning, and then, start planning the new wastewater treatment system. And then how technical it gets in terms of the DEP permitting will dictate how technical they have to get with the new system. So,
But do they have a date as to when they wanna start actual brick and mortar? Or?
I don't think so. Yeah, I didn't get that sense, did you, Jason,
No,
from the
no.
conversation?
No.
I mean, obviously, this is definitely gonna be an expense to us if we decide to go that route, and we maybe ought to lay some groundwork now to start looking to see if there are any grants available for something like that.
Right, they're revolving loan grants, that would be available for that. I've already talked to Mike Stein about that. But I think the catch for us, and you alluded it to me with an email the other day, is to try to capture what money we're gonna be having from the TIF.
Right.
Because that's what's gonna be generating our part of this infrastructure upgrade until the system comes online, and then you have customers, and there will be costs associated with that. But until then, that money from the TIF is what's gonna be,
Right,
so.
I mean, we need to figure out, pick a number of cottages, see what we're getting for tax revenue on them, and kinda
Right.
project out and say, this is what we're gonna have in our TIF,
Correct.
and then kinda go from there, but.
Right, and we'll start working those numbers now that once we hear a little bit more from the sewer district, we can start crunching those numbers in earnest and see what kind of ballpark number we're looking at.
Another piece of the puzzle, which I was actually kinda taken back by it, but it makes sense. So let's say the pipe is laid up Route 1 to the cottages, and we have preliminarily put ports at every piece of property along that line, whether they tap into it or not, we stub in. Well, talking to the district manager there, Arundel's gonna be allotted a percentage, so, like, let's say they give us 10%. Well, what that means for the town of Arundel was, like, let's say they had 100,000 gallons of flow. Well, Arundel can only bring 10% of that to Kennybunk, and that's our limit. I mean, that's what all the studies are gonna be based on, that's what the dollar amount's gonna be based on. So it's not necessarily the pipes laid, every piece of property can tie into the sewer and dump their sewer to Kennybunk. There's actually a lot of calculations that need to be done along, like, and the guy, believe it or not, it was kind of a joke to us, but he said all it takes is one, like, brewery, one, like, one of these, microbreweries to be in line of that pipeline, and he says that'll chew up your 10%, like, quick with their discharge. So it's not a matter of, yay, Arundel's got sewer all the way to the cottages, everybody let's tie into it and dump it to Kennybunk. It's gonna be based on the ownership that Arundel has in that pie, and then.
So, but that percentage will be based on what we are, right, we could say
Right,
we
there-
wanna pay for 20%.
Right,
or
there are projections that are already made, but Jason brings up a good point. I don't know if those projections were made with a brewery in mind,
Right.
which would,
And the DEP, I think, is ultimately the one that's gonna depict how much more extra flow Kennybunk can take. Cause what they're finding is Sanford sewer also dumps into the Mousel. So the water's coming down already at a higher nitrogen level, makes it to the Kennybunk sewer district, and then they take it in and discharge an even higher nitrogen level. But because Kennybunk's last in line, they're responsible for the nitrogen level that gets discharged in the,
In the river.
so the percentage thing kinda threw me for a hoe. Just because we have sewer running up Route 1 and Arundel doesn't mean every piece of property now sells, a business moves in here and ties into sewer, it's,
Well, I mean,
Will that percentage be a percentage of what the treatment plant can handle?
There will be a percentage of what their daily discharge is and what their yearly discharge is. I think we were set up for 173,000 gallons, or 79,000 gallons a day for the first time. And by the end, it was well over 500,000 gallons a day that we were dumping, that we could dump within a 20-year period. So it does ratchet up, and I think that's built into the model at this point. But I think what comes on in terms of what's discharging may be a limiting factor too. So there's a lot to go into it.
so the pipe gets laid in as soon as, I mean, all these landowners, they certainly don't have to tie in if they don't want to.
Well, that's basically left up to you guys,
Right.
whether or not,
Right.
whether we charge a readiness to serve fee.
what
Sure.
Kennybunk does is they, no matter what, you either get a stub out front or you don't, you're paying a fee because the sewer runs by your property.
Correct. There are some districts that are set up that way, and Kennybunk is that way, so.
So,
But that's our call.
Right,
That would be your call.
but the other piece is now because there's a sewer in front of their property, their evaluation will go up. Right, so the landowner's gonna end up paying probably more on taxes on top of that, right?
Yeah, I don't know how that would all work. They have a working sewer now, they have working water now, so I don't know how much that would equate to
those
that.
are-
Interesting question though, one that probably begs an answer.
Well, we certainly will have to get an answer before we get, way too far down this
Yeah.
line,
And if you can
Obviously.
only tie in so many people, how are you gonna figure out who gets in? and who
Yeah,
doesn't?
that was the
Exactly.
biggest piece that I picked out of that whole meeting.
And like to Jason's point, a microbrewery comes in and was like, hey, this is great, we'll put a microbrewery in here and,
Yeah.
For all we know, the cottages consume the whole thing.
good point.
You never know.
So
Yeah,
anyway,
if they
that's
do
what we have.
400 units,
Right.
that's gonna be a lot of water.
Yeah, I thought they figured out how many gallons per day come out of there. we have the data.
Yeah, that's in,
Yeah, it's in
Did they
study.
base it on the 400 units that are allowed?
They
It was
based it on, is it 400? I
Well,
thought
it was
200.
359,
Okay,
and Joe has applied to the planning board for 40 more.
okay,
I don't know if he got it or not.
yeah, I don't know if he's gotten it either. So that would get him up to the 400 range,
Yeah,
something that we need to look at.
and certainly a nice tax revenue for us, but, for the town, but.
Well, the other thing to this is if we decide that the numbers just don't go, that TIF money is still obligated to us, and there are various other options that you provided within the TIF study that we would just ratchet down to the next one that and I can't remember what it is on the list, so. And that's good for, I think it's 24 or 25 years.
I mean, I think the TIF itself would be it was put in place to help pay for the sewer, and I think it's a big piece to help with that, but there's a lot of other pieces to this pie here that we need to make sure that we get figured out, so.
good, spend big dollars.
Okay, Kennebunk River
Yeah.
Watershed Committee.
Yeah, just to let you know that I'm part of this steering committee for the Kennebunk River. Several years ago, we sort of committed some effort and some funding to try to do an analysis of the Kennebunk River. They had a bunch of nutrients that are coming in there that have put the Kennebunk River as one of the most polluted rivers in your county, so something that needs to be addressed. We could have failed septic systems along the corridor, we could have, farms that are treating, their fields too close to the river. There could be a plethora of things that are going there, so the committee and the efforts that we'll make, we'll try to identify those all the way from Kennebunk Port, all the way up through the border, to Lyman, so we're gonna be part of that as we go through. So I'll keep you posted. Our next first kickoff meeting is Thursday, January 24th, from 1 to 3:30 PM at the Wells Estuary Research Reserve down in Wells, so. Yeah, the next thing I have is just to report out the efforts that are being made presently by the new fire chief, where, he's got about 58 pages of a new, standard operating procedure and standard goals all done. He sent it to me, I reviewed it very quickly, and I'm gonna send it off to legal for verification to ensure that it's, that it meets the requirements that we need to. There's a few more pages coming that we'll send along. He got his budget into me today, with quite a good amount of detail to it, rationalization, so, and I've heard nothing but positive, feedback to date from the efforts of the chief as he works his way through the department and its needs, so. I'll keep you abreast of what's going on. And finally, the Public Works Department, last week, was successful in getting down, 2 large trees at that intersection of Brimstone and Limerick Road, the one that we're gonna start redesigning. Roger heard from Steve Blake from, Sebago Technics, is it Sebago Technics or is it? Yeah, PH. I keep getting it wrong. Anyway, Steve is doing, we're doing a survey of that location to ensure that we think that maybe some of the turn lane may not be town property, so we want to ensure that whatever we design and whatever we put there is on town property and not somebody else's, so we'll be working that. Now that the trees are down, I think our next effort, we talked to Kim today, is to get CNP back out, to take a look at the alignment of the utility pole that needs to be on that corner, and where it really needs to be. Whether it needs to come back, clearly it's gonna be out of that intersection, right now it's in the middle of it, so we've gotta do something to either push it towards the house, move it back across the road, so. Now that the tree's down, I think they have a better, way to determine that, so. Effort still moving forward.
Okay.
Right now, Roger's got it on his, on his capital improvement plan, unless we hear otherwise, we're gonna probably put some numbers to it and put it forward to you as we go through the budget process.
Rod, she gonna make a table out of that piece you left her, or, that's a nice piece.
They're gonna make bowls, they're gonna make all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, how are they gonna move them? That's the key.
Are you saying the existing
They
turn?
want it.
It's gonna be modified, yeah.
Right, but some of that is not on town
Oh,
property?
yeah.
Could possibly
Who's the
not be,
species,
yeah.
Jack?
The one that's
I don't know,
there?
what was it, oak?
Yeah.
Oak?
Those ones are maple.
Was it maple?
If for no other reason, and this intersection never happened, that needed to go because it was a safety issue.
Rod in the
There
middle
was
of
at least a 2-foot leader that hung up over the road that we still don't know what was holding it up after we cut it down. It was that bad.
Those are
My
big
worry
tree.
about that tree to begin with was if we went in and did anything on any one of those leaders of that tree, we'd own the whole damn thing. If something happened, it would come off on the house later. You touched it, you own it. You don't have to deal with it, it's what we did. It needed to go.
You did the right thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't good.
Did you count the rings? How old was it?
They figured, it wasn't as old as I thought it would be. Our tree guy figured it was somewhere between 125, 130 years old.
Oh, it's gotta be more than that.
That's what I thought, but they're telling me no.
The tree's been
The
there a
trouble
long
is-
time, they had a big
I
butt
had
on
a
it.
huge base to it. I know there's trees that are half as big as that, and they're over 100.
So he figured 100, well, I was guessing at least 150, but
Yeah.
the way that was at the base, there was no way to accurately count anything. Because over half of it was gone in the backside of it. There's another one just up the street that we don't own, there's no intersection going there, but it's gonna be in the street one of these nights, and that's what used to be the old Maine's property. There's a true Maine definition, somebody that lived there 50 years ago. But, just if you're headed from that spot, just past Liberty Acres, that next house on the left, there's a big maple there, that is bad, folks.
On the new roof or on Limerick?
On the Limerick Road, on the, say, the left-hand side, coming from Labarge property, coming down Limerick Road, go past Liberty Acres Drive, that very next house.
Blue, right?
Almost right on the corner.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
in the
yeah,
middle
yeah.
of the corner, on the outside of the corner.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's so far out of the right of way, it's, and I've talked to two previous owners and said, I wanna consider doing something with that, but one of these nights, that section of road's gonna be closed.
Okay,
But anyways, that's where I am.
okay, new business, you kinda touched a little bit on this, but budget, how we,
Yeah, I reached out to the budget chairman, we're gonna go for the end of this month.
Okay.
Start kicking it off, we're gonna choose Tuesdays. He says he's got 2 members of the committee that can't meet on Wednesdays, so we're gonna switch to Tuesdays to kick it off, so you'll get notices here real soon.
I happened to see him today,
Okay.
and he talked about trying to pull a meeting next week.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
No, I
I've
don't think
just got the data in now, the department heads are getting it in, and I've got to put it all together and then look at the bottom line and see if I have to go back to the department heads to make some changes, so.
so. Does he know that?
Yeah, he knows,
You're
yeah.
not ready?
I'll talk with Sean again, but
Yeah.
he's pretty well read into that.
okay, anybody got, anything else on new business? Okay, looking for a motion for, the warrant, account table.
Move.
Second.
Motion by Phil, seconded by Jason. All those in favor? Anybody else get anything you wanna bring up? For a motion to adjourn,
So move.
Second?
motion by Phil, seconded by Jason at 8:20 PM. All those in favor?
Whatever happened with the possible mini golf?
Hold on a second.
Whatever that,
On Route 1?
yeah, exactly.